Educator's Lens, the podcast where we explore the heart, hustle, and humanity behind the work of educators. I'm your host, Robin Young, and I'm so glad you're here. Today's episode is a special one. We are joined by someone whose work has deeply inspired me and so many others in the field of education. Erin Tashian is a distinguished teacher, certified coach, mindfulness instructor, and emotional wellness expert. She's also a podcast host and a professional developer who is deeply committed to fostering the social and emotional wellness of educators through reflective self-awareness practices. Erin was named Teacher of the Year in Ridgewood, New Jersey, and has shared her insights at major conferences, including the AMLE National Convention, the National At-Risk Youth Conference, and numerous NJPSA conferences. Her work is grounded in compassion, authenticity, and a deep belief in the power of educators to transform lives, starting with their own. Before I welcome her on, I do want to acknowledge that right now we record on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Kwantlen, Katzie, Matsqui, and Semiahmoo First Nations. I'm so grateful to live, learn, and work on this land, and I honor the enduring presence and resilience of Indigenous peoples past, present, and future. And with that, welcome to the show, Erin. It is so great to have you.
So nice to be here. What an opening. My goodness. If we could all just take that minute to pause and honor, it's really beautiful.
Well, I'm glad that you were here to do it with me. Over here in British Columbia this week, we have the most beautiful moon that I have ever seen. So every night, that's been how I've been connecting to the land out here.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Love it.
So let's get started with a little bit of fun. Erin, I'm going to give you two options for this segment of this or that, and you just say the one that resonates with you most. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee, coffee, coffee.
My girl, my girl. Mountains or ocean?
I'm going to say right now, ocean. I grew up in Boise, Idaho, very mountainous. Love the mountains, but I really have been drawn lately to the ocean, to the water.
The water does have a very calming presence to it. I think when you go and listen, you can't help but be present and in the moment when you're near the water.
Yes, I agree.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird, hence the coffee, coffee, coffee. No, I love mornings and I love quiet mornings more than anything.
I love that. Last one here, favorite season, fall or spring?
Fall, without a doubt. I'm on the East Coast, so we have beautiful falls.
Oh, do you get the beautiful transition of the leaves out there?
Absolutely. Yep. We're starting right now. Right now, it's still been a little warm, but it is just a sight to behold in the Northeast, just to watch the leaves change and transition. It's beautiful.
One of the best times of the year.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've been recognized as Teacher of the Year and have presented at some of the most respected education conferences. So I am very curious, what do you think are the key ingredients to sustaining passion and purpose in teaching over time?
Oh my. The key ingredients, there are so many right now. And I just, before we started recording, I was saying how last year I thought we had reached the pinnacle of the teacher load as I saw it, of just shouldering so much. And this year I'm seeing that load just, quadruple again. And I'm like, how many more things can teachers take on? I'm not sure, what's happening where you are, but where I am, there's a lot of shifting towards integration of AI, but not just as educators, but also how we're using it with the learners, which, has seemed to, for me, seems to be moving very rapidly for teachers. And so I think, my anchor has always been that teachers have to have their own set of wellness practices, starting with, to me, the most important, which is self-awareness. I do a lot of work around your own owner's manual around emotions and your understanding of your emotions. And I think that that is critical to just being a very grounded, centered educator and human, which, by the way, you said humanity in part of your tagline of the podcast, like the heart, the hustle, and the humanity. And I hate to point out where we're getting things wrong, but I think we've really relied on the heart and hustle a lot with
Mm,
teachers to their detriment almost. And we need to start really bringing in components of the humanity piece.
I
So
agree.
I'm not sure if I answered all of that question, but to me, it's self awareness and understanding your own emotional experience, I think, is critical.
Yes, I would definitely agree. And I think that's one of those things that you mentioned is the heart and hustle, like that we have been relying so much on the hustle. And as you mentioned as well, it seems like, yeah, we just ended up in September, but already the load feels like it perhaps might be June.
Hmm. Hmm. You're 100% right. And that's it's not that I see teachers not taking on the humanity part, but I'm not quite sure that we're leaning into what it means to be human. I mean, teachers are human. What's being asked of is almost it's too much. I don't know anybody that's able to take it all on really well and then without a whole host of strategies to support them in order to maintain.
Your work, it really does center around the reflective self-awareness. And for
Mhm.
educators who are just beginning their journey, how would you recommend that they start in this profession, knowing the things that you know?
I think everything that I'm going to say is counterintuitive to how we're living right now, but just getting quiet and just slowing down and taking a minute to just close your eyes and check in. One of the first things I typically do in a workshop is we start by talking about how we feel. And that's a very hard question for people to even answer because they
Hmm.
either don't have the language or they're not quite sure. And me too, there's a lot of disconnect between mind and body. And our mind might be thinking our way through this profession, but I think the body is screaming to a lot of people and we're just blowing past it. So for me, it would
Hmm.
be slowing down and checking in and getting quiet, whatever that looks like, walking in nature, or some people are okay just taking a minute and breathing deeply or sitting in their car with some music, but just taking a minute off of the treadmill. And I think that's really important to start to know. One of the expressions I use in my workshops a lot, it's hard to get to know yourself if you're never alone with yourself. And we are not ever really alone with ourselves. Most of us are multitasking and doing many jobs, and lots of educators are women and they're carrying, they're wearing different hats. And so that minute or two, it just seems like such a luxury, but it's really important to developing some self-awareness.
Do you think that there's a time in the day that might be beneficial to tap into that maybe we overlook, where we might
For
be able
sure.
to blend in some of these moments?
Yeah, I think because I speak teacherese, because I'm a teacher, I've been really trying to give systems to teachers because we do well on structure and plans and routines. And the one that seemed very natural to me that I'm trying to, kind of share with other educators is paying attention to the beginnings and endings of just about anything. I mean, as educators, we pay attention to the beginnings of our lesson and the end of our lesson. Like the beginning, we're warming up, or, we're doing some sort of gathering in some way. In the ending, we might be doing some assessment of some sort, but there's always attention to the beginnings and endings. And I think a lot of our day could be structured around what are we doing in the beginning before the kids enter the room? What are we
Mm.
doing at the end of our day? And I have tons of strategies that I love to share before we exit out into the next role or the next job or the next situation at the end of the day. And then also beginning of morning when you wake up and end of day before you go to bed. I just like the structure of beginnings and endings.
I love the beginnings and endings idea. What type of activities do you think would be beneficial in those time periods?
I mean, just as I said, getting quiet, but just starting, and this is a very overused word right now, but some intentionality of expectation for your day. I speak to teachers as if they're like me because more often than not, we have some commonality in our traits. And I was an achiever and I was a I always say recovering achiever, recovering striver, recovering perfectionist, recovering caretaker. No, but I really think that managing expectations of myself is really important. That to-do list being very long sometimes can take us out of being in the present moment and also cause us a lot of emotional turmoil. I didn't create this, and I wish I could give credit to who did, but it's evading me right now. The MIT, the most important things. Your list of the day should only include your most important things for today, not
Mm.
the list that's got 27 things on it, because that I think for most of us, we just keep, let me just do another one. Let me just do another one. So I think some intentionality around the beginning of the day. What is the expectation? What are the most important things you want to accomplish that day? And it doesn't even have to be a thing. Maybe it's even a way of being. How do you want to be when you walk through the door or start class? Or if one of your students is going to, you know, behave like students do, just setting that intention before that happens. Well, how do I want to respond? So intentionality at the beginning of the day. And then always, I love reflection at the end of the day. So I sometimes tell teachers, we're so good at leaving notes on our desk of the things that we have to do. A great practice is to just leave a note on your desk of something that went right or something that felt good during the day, just so it's the first thing you see in the morning. Just small little practices like that, I think, can allow us to contain the day with some, positivity. Not that I want to make everything about positivity, but it just helps us kind of look for some of the things that matter.
Yeah, and I think we're always searching for, validating our truth, right? And I love that idea
Hmm.
of tacking on a bit of encouragement to yourself onto the notes that you've already had for tomorrow, because as teachers, we all try to be very efficient. And if you're already like, okay, I'm going to bingo, bango, bongo, this is what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to leave myself an intention to set for tomorrow. What a
Hmm.
powerful thing to walk into is you're still going to eventually get to all the stack of things. But that the first thing
Absolutely.
that you read is the intention and that you set it for yourself, making it personal and relevant. I love that.
And celebrated your day. And my deep wish is that all of the practices that teachers learn either through me or in other workshops or in other ways, that we're also bringing those to students, because that would be the exact same thing I would have kids do at the end of the day. Put down the win for you for today, or something that you did well, leave it on your desk, on a sticky note. Those little practices can sometimes shift and alter kids' behavior, the way the classroom runs. It's also an incredible social emotional skill that you're teaching them, which is, we set intentions or we think forward and then we reflect at the end of the day. But they're all kind of, if we're not practicing them, it's hard to kind of make them part of the classroom experience.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned students because I was wondering how you might envision these things bleeding and evolving into schools and how that might support teacher retention and student well-being.
I think you can't teach what you're not practicing. And we know that the foundation of learning is making sure that kids feel safe and calm and welcome and loved in their classroom. And so that takes a lot of skills and strategies in self awareness, emotional regulation, understanding emotions, building relationships, making good decisions. But if we're not practicing those as the adults in the room, it's hard to teach it and model it. And another one of my favorite practices is getting teachers to reflect on how is it that they want to feel in their classroom. Like
Mm,
just being intentional with like this is kind of like a reframe to an emotional regulation strategy, but it's how do you want to feel? Like I know how maybe I'm feeling at the end of the day may not be, maybe I'm feeling exhausted or frustrated or tired, but thinking about how do I want to feel when I'm in my classroom environment, naming it. For me, it was always I wanted to feel calm. And then I walk teachers through, well, can you identify three actions? Can you bring action to that would invite in calm? Because we have more choice over our feelings than I think sometimes we realize. And so if I
mm,
want to feel calm through that reflection process, I know that drinking coffee in the afternoon or 3 cups of coffee during the day is not going to make me feel calm no matter what happens. So it brought, and illuminated my running out at lunch to go get my coffee. I have to be mindful to just stick to one because it's not going to help me be a calm teacher. Showing up right when the bell rings as opposed to getting to school early. is not ever helping me feel calm. So it's all kind of controlling the controllables, but thinking about what are the things that I can do to invite in the feeling that I want to have. And that gives agency to teachers. And then that transitions to doing the same with kids and walking kids through. You have a test on Friday in math. How do you want to feel? Having kids name it on a post-it note. And, I've done this a lot in classrooms. I want to feel prepared. Okay, what are three things that you can do to make sure that you're prepared? Well, I can talk to my teacher. I can make sure I study more than one night. But we're giving agency to kids by getting them to name the actions that support those feelings. And it's just super powerful. Doesn't mean I'm always going to feel calm, but when I'm not calm, it gives me pause to look back and say, how did I set myself up today? Did I set myself up to be the calmest version of myself? And typically there's things that I could have done that probably would have invited that in a little bit more.
I would imagine that would also help you to rewrite some of the stories that you might tell yourself about yourself. Is that, like I'm always worried and so this is what happens to me. I
Hmm.
like your reframe of how do I want to feel as opposed to
Hmm.
perhaps like how do I feel right now? Well, maybe I feel right now is very worried.
Yeah.
But how do you want to feel? And then reverse design. Okay, well then if I want to feel that way, then I can do
What can I
these
do?
things.
Right.
And then in the
And it's
moment, I think you could tell yourself, okay, I feel this way because I did these.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of ways of looking at that exercise. And I've had principals even say that it's been very helpful when kids come in because they've either gotten in trouble and they're upset or something. And then once they, process how they're feeling, okay, and well, how do you want to feel? And what can we do right here in this moment to get you to feel? So we're trying to invite in regulation strategies, really. But it's really about teaching agency. We have agency over our emotions. They happen, they show up. They're just, if you follow any of Mark Brackett's work from the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence, it's just information, but we have agency over what we're going to do with that information. And I just find it to be really powerful. But teachers can practice it themselves first,
Mm.
so that there's lots of ways you can bring that into the classroom. But then also it's helpful too, because typically, especially when kids are doing, when I think about like things like tests, or they want to do well on their project or what, it's typically the adults, either the parents or the teachers, that are telling them, okay, you better do this, well, you have to do this. And I think kids are losing agency, and we really want to
Mhm.
give that autonomy piece back by allowing them to make the constructs that will allow them to either achieve or feel a certain way. I think it's really important.
Yeah, and I like that bit of where you're speaking to that emotions are going to happen, but that we have then the power to choose what we're going to do with our emotions. And I think that
Yes.
sometimes my son is 7 and he sometimes has gotten into trouble at school. And the funny thing is, when we talk about it after, he says, "Well, mommy, like my emotions got to me." And I said, like, well,
Which is
that's
right.
fantastic that your emotions got to you. However, you actually are the boss of your emotions. And
Yes.
while it's okay to feel angry and while it's okay to feel
Hmm.
sad, it is actually not okay to do X and Y and Z. And so
Yeah.
we need
Yeah.
to find other ways to express.
Yes. The feelings are okay. The actions are what gets us in trouble sometimes.
Right. And then it's knowing the actions that are going to help you to get through
Hmm.
the tough moment. Like I know you mentioned Mark Brackett. He has this great app that I actually use called How We Feel. And when he was angry one day, the one that actually worked the most for him was making a self affirmation card. So he took a little selfie picture and then he's able to read. So he was able to read, I'm
Oh,
caring, and he was able to tell me why. And I'm adventurous and, I'm loving. And he came up with all of these examples of how he wants to be as a person and where that shows up for him in life. So I
it is
think
so
it's those
beautiful.
lessons when they're little that helps
Yes.
to, you know,
Yes, yes. As just on a funny aside, you made me think that. So I do sometimes model lessons in classrooms, and I was doing this lesson on, how do you want to feel on the test on Friday, and it was in a fourth grade class, and the boy said to me, he wrote on the post that I want to feel happy when I take
mm.
that test on Friday. And when he came to his actionable steps, his second step was stay away from people who annoy me. And I just thought, first of all, I mean, yes, that is important. If you want to feel happy, you have to figure out how to move away from the people that annoy you or figure out how not to let them annoy you. But I just, back to like what you were saying, that your son is now thinking about affirmations, and that becomes like our thought process, right?
Right.
Finding different ways where kids can take control is really just a brilliant, brilliant outcome of all of this.
Yeah, I love that idea,
Hmm.
and I think that that is something that even our listeners can take forward, and that's one small change that they can make and
Hmm.
bring into their practice without downloading a lesson plan or finding a
Mm-mm.
fancy poster. It's just that conversation around, okay, how do you want to feel and what are the steps that we can take? It can just be a discussion where we're being
Hmm.
humans for a moment and acknowledging the pressures that come along with being in a school, either private or public, and the fact that you can't escape those four walls. And so what are you going to
Mm-mm.
do while
Yeah, it's a lot of on the fly teaching. I really believe that. I mean, I don't have problems with SEL programs, but I believe that the most effective SEL, or the work that we've done either ourselves that we're also then modeling and showing and bringing into the classroom. But it's all of those, little skills and strategies that we're embedding throughout the day. Because as you said, we're confined to four walls, lots shows up, and there's a lot to teach into.
Yeah, and you're right. Those the SEL kind of standalone programs, I think, can be beneficial. But I think where sometimes we might fall into a bit of a trap is thinking like, okay, September is done. I've done my SEL lessons. Like October has come. They know the zones of regulation, and so therefore they should be able to go forward and be SEL proof. And I don't think that's how it works. I think that they need an
No,
embedded,
adults are having a hard
um,
time with that.
right?
Yes.
Yes. It's
But I
not
think,
like teaching fractions.
no, if we could all normalize, that would be my biggest wish. If we could all just normalize when kids are feeling a certain way, that we can acknowledge, I have felt that way, or am probably feeling that way right now too. I just think that would go a long way to acknowledge that feelings are part of all of our day in and day out.
Yeah, and that there are strategies for whether we want to stay in those emotional zones or
Hmm.
if we want to move through them and work on them, we can. There's information and help out there.
So much, so much.
So let's bust a couple myths about self-awareness and social emotional learning practices. And you can tell us if it's fact or fiction and what you know about it.
Oh, okay.
All
I
right.
hope I know
Well,
something about it. I'm already getting
I
nervous.
I think you
I'm
will. I think
naming
you,
my.
but how do you want to feel?
I know I don't want to feel nervous. I'm okay feeling nervous, but maybe I gotta let go of the self-talk. Okay.
You'll be great. I'm confident in you. Myth
Okay.
number one, mindfulness is just meditation.
That's false.
See, you're great already. And
I
why
know.
is that
Yeah.
false?
Meditation is a practice of mindfulness, but there's a lot of other practices. And mindfulness, in my interpretation, which is a takeoff of probably John Kabat-Zinn, which is just being in the present moment without judgment and being very aware of what's going on in your mind and in your body. And yeah, you can do that without meditating. Meditating is just a practice that supports that mindful awareness.
Beautiful. See, knocked it out of the park on that one.
Thank you.
Myth number two, teachers should always put students first, even at the expense of their own well being.
Oh my goodness, never, never, never. It's the same with parents. Never. They have to take care of themselves first. That doesn't mean they neglect students, but the priority is teachers' overall well-being, really.
Mhm.
And if we can remember that, and remember that take, doesn't mean you have to take weeks and weeks off, although it might, but we shouldn't be triaging our self-care is something I say a lot. It should be triage is we're already a puddle on the ground, and now we need a lot to kind of buoy ourselves back up. But this idea of self-awareness practices, self-care practices, whatever term you want, wellness practices, should be these small incremental things that we are doing for ourselves that accrue over time, so we don't end up as the puddle on the floor. But it shouldn't be
Mhm.
the triage that we're doing because we're on the floor. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. The question that I kind of have about that too is I've worked with a number of people who have, unfortunately been taken from work in an ambulance because
Mm.
they were just so burnt out, so exhausted that they became a puddle. And I think it might have crept up on them slowly. I wonder if, because being in a building, you're a team, are there some telltale signs when somebody is almost that puddle where we could look out for each other that might help us right in the buildings?
Yeah, I mean, what a part of when I do like a series of owner's manual reflections, that's what I call it, like really getting under the hood and understanding yourself on a deeper level. One of our reflections is around how do you know you are doing too much?
Hmm.
You would be surprised at how many people have no idea what happens to them. And then I give them categories: what happens to you physically, what happens to you behaviorally, what might happen to you emotionally. Like, can you identify when the signs are there that you are doing too much? And then I use I model my examples of, like, I get a little eyelid twitter, like a little flutter down here in my
Mm-hmm.
eyelid, which is my body's first indicator that, like, I'm either not sleeping enough, I'm stressed. But we all have those things. I have behavioral awareness that I've come to when I start controlling my children at home. That's a telltale sign that I'm on overload. But,
Hmm.
it's different for everybody. It's so individualized. But I do think taking a minute and just trying to mine your life and your experience for what are the signs that show up when you're doing too much, and can you begin to start to bring some mindfulness awareness to those. That's the first step, is notice it. Second step is then listen and do something about it. I think that's for us as individuals. In terms of working with people, is that part of your question? Like, how do we know with
Mm-hmm.
other teachers?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of feelings on, and of course, I don't want to house everybody in the same way, but from my experience, teachers are just so caring, compassionate, thoughtful. They achieve so much. They're hardworking, that I think we've almost normalized this. I just call it the striver's dilemma. It's like we're all just striving to keep going. And it's become like, I don't know, I think we've normalized it for each other, as opposed to, I wish we would now see, oh my gosh, I'm noticing that they are, not coming to lunch anymore because they're doing work
Mm-hmm.
on their, during their prep, or they're at lunch and they're just really complaining a lot. I mean, that is one of the things way in the early part of my career. That was my first awareness, was I was really becoming someone that I didn't want to be. The negativity at lunch, which is part of our teacher language, so we get a half hour if we're lucky to talk about all the things that went wrong during the day, or with kids. And then that I started to notice that I was shifting and I was
Hmm.
becoming a little bit more negative. I think we've normalized some of the practices in education, that I wish we would take a little bit of a harder look at. Is our time with other teachers only spent talking about kids and what they're not doing, and parents and what they're not doing? Is that making any sense to you?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think you touched on 2 points there. One, the idea that it's normal for people to work through their breaks, right?
Mm.
And that is something that I understand why it gets done. And I also understand the harm that it can cause you long term if you don't
Mm.
stop during those lunch breaks, and no one's going to tell you to stop, right? Please
No.
stop. Please stop being better.
Right. And it's not, I do think everything is an individualized experience. And so if somebody wants to work and it's working for them through lunch, that's absolutely makes sense to me. But if it's maybe not working for them because it doesn't seem like they're feeling like on solid ground, it might just be the beginning of a conversation. But again, I think we've just normalized as teachers that we are in this position of, we've just been given so much that it's hard to step out and say, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right.
Hmm.
That's the other part of education, that, speaking up is a challenge. And I really believe that educators have to start speaking. I mean, there's a difference between speaking truth and complaining. And knowing that, I think, can be very helpful when you're talking to the people who are running the school districts or the schools. We have to speak truth to what the experience is. And that's my opinion.
I love that. And I think that going forward, people that have important thoughts to share can feel encouraged by that, that not everything you have to say is a complaint. It is valid and it does need
Yeah.
to be shared. So go ahead and do
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got one more question for you, Erin, before I say goodbye for the evening.
Sure.
If there is one educational shift that you could make from your lens and your viewpoint, what would be the most important shift for you?
Teachers need continual support over time. So whatever that professional development for the district is based on their district goals, it needs to be, in my mind, coaching. It needs to be, anytime you do any kind of coaching with somebody, it's over time consistently. In education, we've gotten it to this place where we give you like a day or maybe 2 days, and then that's it. You're an expert. We move on to the next thing. And
Mhm.
that just isn't supportive or sustainable. So my wish is that we would move to a coaching model, and like many private businesses do, and that we're supporting teachers with an awful lot of ways, but consistently over time. Every week, twice a month, whatever that looks like. I mean, I've been fortunate to convince some districts to do that with me. So I come in, and the most I've been able to get is once a month. But we do coaching in literacy, we do coaching in math. Why we should be coaching wellness practices, instructional strategies, behavior management. I mean, a lot. There just needs to be a lot of support right now. AI integration,
Yeah, I agree. The interesting thing
amazing.
is a lot of these programs and mentorship programs in particular are being cut in British
Mm,
Columbia right now. And I think what you said right there is a very important reminder of why these programs should not be cut. And
mm-hmm.
it's simply because, like, think about all the different subject areas that there are and that educators are being tasked with. And they do need somebody to go to and to coach them through so that they know that they are not alone.
Yes, because the education climate is rapidly changing, as you know, daily, between the way kids are showing up with, you know, a lot of different behavioral needs, to curriculums changing, to AI moving quickly. There's just a lot. This is my 35th year as an educator. In my 35 years, I feel like right now we are on the precipice of major change. And we have some educational districts jumping in and figuring out how to do it, and others that are dipping their toe in, and then others that are staying far away because they don't know what to do. And the people in the boat doing the rowing and swimming are the teachers. It's kind of backwards to me. Frustrates me, but that's why I do what I do. But I
I
think we
agree.
all have to just keep saying what is true, which is things are rapidly changing right now.
And that people like you to support and help people through or is just more crucial than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, how can listeners get a hold of you if they'd like to work with you or have support with you?
I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, Erin Tashian. I'm not as active. I'm of age where I know social media is the name of the game, and I have a love-hate relationship with it. So I would say I have a website, erintashian.com. You can contact me through there. I keep committing that I'm going to get on Instagram. I do have an Instagram, Erin_Tashian. I'm not as prominent on there as probably people think I should be, but I'm okay with that. It's a tricky spot, I can get sucked in just like everybody else.
Right. And like you said, the user experience is individual. So, you are doing what's
Yeah,
right for you.
be with people in person than across the digital platforms, but I know that that's part of the name of the game.
Well, I appreciate you joining me digitally today. I know that that
Thank
was
you.
pretty cool little bridge over to New Jersey. I want
I
to
loved
thank
it.
you so much for sharing your wisdom and your heart and your journey with us today. Your work is a powerful reminder that when we take care of ourselves, we're better equipped to care for others, and that educator wellness isn't a luxury, it is a necessity. To our
Absolutely.
listeners, thank you for tuning in to Behind the Educator's Lens. If Erin's message resonated with you, be sure to check out her work and follow her on LinkedIn and a little bit on Instagram. Until next time, Keep breathing deep, leading with heart, and showing up for yourself as much as you do for your students.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.